You can make six figures and still feel like you are losing. Nobody says that out loud, but a lot of people over 40 know exactly what I mean. The house looks good from the street, the car is clean, the clothes are decent, the job title sounds respectable. People assume you are doing fine because your life has the shape of success. But behind the door, there is a different story. A checking account that feels too thin, a credit card balance you keep meaning to handle, a quiet pressure every time another bill shows up, and maybe the hardest part is this. You are not irresponsible. You work. You show up. You have carried responsibilities for years. So why does it still feel like the money comes in with a suitcase and leaves through the back door before you even sit down? That is the trap. Not poverty in the obvious sense, not failure, something more invisible. A rich salary attached to a poor life. And today we are going to look at the hidden cost of looking successful, because sometimes the most expensive thing you own is the image you are trying to maintain. The first layer of this problem is that income can make you feel safe before you actually are safe. A bigger salary has a strange way of calming the fear for a while. You tell yourself, now I can breathe. And in some ways, you can. You can buy better groceries. You can fix the car without panicking. You can take the family out and not stare at the menu like it is a math test. You can finally replace things instead of patching them. That part is real. A higher income does solve certain problems. But here is where life gets quiet and dangerous. A bigger salary also gives you permission to stop paying attention. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic way. Just slowly. The small decisions get softer. The standards rise. The old apartment becomes embarrassing. The used car starts looking like something you deserve to move on from. The simple vacation feels too small for the version of yourself you think you have become. And none of these choices feel foolish in the moment. That is why they are so powerful. They come dressed as progress. They sound like adulthood. They look like reward. After years of working hard, it feels reasonable to say, I should be able to enjoy my money. And you should. But there is a difference between enjoying your money and letting your money build a costume for your life. The costume is what drains people. The costume says, you make too much to drive that. The costume says, you cannot show up looking ordinary. The costume says, people expect you to live at a certain level now. And once that costume gets expensive, it becomes hard to take off. Because now you are not just paying for a car, a house, a neighborhood, a watch, a vacation, or a restaurant bill. You are paying for the story people believe about you. And stories can become very expensive. I have seen people with modest salaries sleep better than people with impressive salaries, not because they had more potential, but because they had fewer financial chains disguised as achievements. A person making $55,000 a year, who knows exactly what they can afford, may have more peace than a person making $180,000 who has built a life that requires $181,000 just to keep moving. And that is the part that stings, because nobody feels poor when the money arrives. Payday can feel like proof. The deposit hits, and for a brief moment, everything seems okay. But then the mortgage takes its piece, the car loan takes its piece, insurance takes its piece, taxes already took theirs. Subscriptions take a little, eating out takes a little. Children, aging parents, repairs, gifts, travel, school, medical bills, clothes, maintenance, social obligations, they all line up quietly. And by the time the month is halfway over, the big salary does not feel big anymore. It feels like water running through open hands. The hidden cost of looking successful is not only the dollars, it is the mental rent you pay every day. It is waking up with a full calendar and an empty feeling. It is earning more than you used to earn, but still feeling one bad month away from exposure. It is avoiding the bank app because you already know the truth is waiting there. It is telling people everything is fine because technically it should be. And that word should can wear a person down. I should be ahead by now. I should have more saved. I should not be this stressed at my age. I should be grateful. I should be doing better. But shame does not fix a financial life. Shame usually makes it more expensive. Because when people feel behind, they often buy small moments that make them feel caught up. A nicer dinner, a better outfit, a quick trip, a little upgrade. Not because they are careless, but because they are tired of feeling deprived inside a life that looks abundant from the outside. This is where the trap tightens. The more successful you appear, the harder it becomes to admit that the appearance is costing you too much. When you are young, starting over looks normal. When you are over 40, starting over can feel humiliating. You think, at this age, I should not have to downsize. I should not have to drive something older. I should not have to say no. I should not have to rebuild. But maybe rebuilding is not a sign that you failed. Maybe it is a sign that you finally stopped lying to yourself. Because the truth is, a salary is not wealth. A salary is a river. Wealth is what remains when the river passes through. And too many people judge the strength of their financial life by the size of the river, not by what is left on the banks. They say, I make good money. But they never ask, how much of my life do I get to keep? That question changes everything, because a rich salary can create a poor life when every dollar is already assigned to protect an image. The image needs the upgraded house. The image needs the new car. The image needs the vacation pictures. The image needs the generous holiday spending. The image needs the brand name, the right neighborhood, the right school district, the right dinner table, the right answer when someone asks how things are going. But your real life needs something quieter. It needs margin. It needs sleep. It needs money that is not already promised to someone else. It needs the freedom to turn down work that is breaking you. It needs the ability to handle a surprise without turning it into a crisis. It needs a version of success that does not require applause to feel real. And that is where we need to go next, because the moment you separate income from identity, you begin to see the real problem. It is not that you do not earn enough. Sometimes the problem is that your life became too expensive for your soul to carry. The second layer is lifestyle inflation, but I do not want to use that phrase in the cheap way people usually use it. Because when people hear lifestyle inflation, they imagine someone foolish, someone showing off, someone buying things just to impress strangers. But for a lot of people over 40, it is much more human than that. Lifestyle inflation often begins as relief. You spent years saying no, years choosing the cheaper option, years delaying comfort, years watching other people move ahead while you kept telling yourself, one day. Then one day, the income finally rises. Maybe the promotion comes, maybe the business grows, maybe the household finally has 2 decent incomes, maybe the kids are older and things feel a little less tight, and suddenly the old limits feel unfair. You do not want to live like you are still struggling when, on paper, you are not. So you upgrade a little. Nothing crazy. A better place to live, a safer car, better food, better insurance, a vacation that feels earned, maybe helping your adult children a bit, maybe taking care of your parents, maybe buying back some dignity after years of feeling behind. And honestly, some of that is good. Money should improve your life. The problem begins when every improvement becomes permanent, and every permanent improvement becomes non-negotiable. That is the quiet turn. At first, the upgrade feels like freedom. Later, it becomes the new floor. The nicer house stops feeling nice. It just becomes where you live. The better car stops feeling special. It just becomes the car. The restaurants stop feeling like a treat. They become the rhythm, the subscriptions, the memberships, the devices, the clothes, the little conveniences. They stop feeling like choices and start feeling like normal life. And once expensive becomes normal, simple starts to feel like failure. That is one of the most dangerous financial shifts a person can experience. Not bankruptcy, not disaster. Just the slow loss of your ability to feel content with enough. Because when enough keeps moving, your income can chase it for decades and never catch it. This is why someone can double their salary and still not double their peace. Their paycheck got bigger, but their definition of normal got bigger too. And when normal becomes expensive, stress becomes the background music of the house. You may not hear it all day, but it is playing. It plays when the property tax notice arrives. It plays when the car needs repairs. It plays when your child asks for help. It plays when your spouse mentions vacation. It plays when the company starts making cuts, and you realize your lifestyle needs that exact job, that exact bonus, that exact income, that exact pace. That is when success starts to feel like a cage with good furniture. From the outside, people see the furniture. From the inside, you feel the bars. And one of those bars is pride. Pride is not always loud. Sometimes pride sounds very reasonable. We cannot move backward. We worked too hard for this. What will people think? The kids are used to this. This is just what things cost now. We deserve some comfort. And again, some of that may be true. But pride has a way of taking a true sentence and using it to protect a false life. You can deserve comfort and still be drowning. You can love your family and still be training them to depend on a financial image you can barely support. You can be a generous person and still need boundaries. You can have worked hard and still need to admit that the life you built costs more than it gives back. That admission is not weakness. It is the beginning of honesty. Because here is what many people never calculate. They calculate the monthly payment, but not the emotional payment. They calculate whether they can afford the house, but not whether they can afford the pressure that comes with the house. They calculate the car payment, but not the extra years they will stay in a job they dislike because the car needs them to. They calculate the vacation, but not the resentment of paying it off after the memories have already faded. They calculate the private school, the bigger kitchen, the nicer neighborhood, the upgraded lifestyle. But they do not calculate what happens to their nervous system when every month depends on everything going right. And life, if you have lived long enough, does not always go right. A parent gets sick, a roof leaks, a company restructures, a market falls, a marriage changes, a body gets tired, a child needs help. And suddenly, the life that looked successful reveals how fragile it was. Not because the person was stupid, because they confused approval with security. They confused access with ownership. They confused being able to make the payment with being able to afford the life. Those are different things, very different. Being able to make the payment means the bank believes your income can carry the debt. Being able to afford the life means your future still has oxygen after the payment is made. And oxygen is what most high earners are missing. Not money, exactly. Oxygen. Space. The ability to pause, the ability to think, the ability to say, I am okay, even if I do not upgrade this year. I am okay, even if no one is impressed. I am okay, even if my life looks smaller, but feels lighter. That kind of peace does not show up in a salary number. It does not impress people at dinner. It does not photograph well. But when you are lying awake at 2:17 in the morning, it matters more than anything you bought to look successful. So the question is not, how much do you make? The question is, how much of your life does your income have to defend? Because if your salary has to defend your house, your car, your image, your pride, your status, your children's expectations, your friends' assumptions, your family's opinion, and your own fear of looking ordinary, then even a rich salary can become exhausted. And when your salary is exhausted, you become exhausted with it. The third layer is that looking successful can become a second job. And unlike your real job, it does not pay you. It only invoices you. Quietly. Repeatedly. For years. You start to notice that your life has expectations attached to it. People expect you to host. They expect you to give. They expect you to show up. They expect you to take the trip, buy the gift, pick up the check, help the kids, help the parents, attend the wedding, contribute to the fundraiser, upgrade the house, maintain the yard, keep the car clean, keep the image polished. And because you are the person who does well, saying no feels strange, almost rude, almost like you are breaking character. That is the part nobody tells you. Success creates a character, and after a while, you may feel obligated to keep playing him. The reliable one, the generous one, the one who never worries about money, the one who has it handled, the one people come to when they need help. And maybe you like being that person. Maybe part of you is proud of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is a difference between being generous from strength and being generous from fear. Strength says, I can help, and I choose to. Fear says, if I do not help, they will see that I am not as stable as they think. That kind of generosity has a hidden cost. It turns kindness into pressure. It turns love into obligation. It turns your paycheck into a public utility. And slowly, Your private life gets thinner while your public image stays full. This happens in families all the time. A man works hard, earns well, and becomes the financial shock absorber for everyone around him. His adult children need a little support. His parents need help with medical bills. A sibling falls behind. A friend is in a tight spot. His spouse has grown used to a certain lifestyle, and every request sounds reasonable by itself. That is the trap. One request is not the problem. 10 reasonable requests, repeated over years, can quietly drain a life. Nobody means to hurt you. They may not even know what it costs you. They only see the salary. They do not see the spreadsheet. They do not see the retirement account that should be bigger. They do not see the emergency fund that keeps getting rebuilt and emptied. They do not see the private resentment you feel and then feel guilty for feeling. And that guilt can be expensive too. Because when people over 40 look at money, they are not just looking at numbers. They are looking at history. They remember the years they were not able to provide the way they wanted. They remember telling a child, "Not right now." They remember watching a spouse worry. They remember their own parents struggling. So when they finally have income, they want to fix more than bills. They want to fix memories. They want to prove that the struggle did not win. And that desire is deeply human. But money cannot heal every old wound. Sometimes it only builds a more comfortable room around it. You buy the bigger house because the small one made you feel trapped. You buy the better car because the old one made you feel embarrassed. You pay for everyone because once you knew what it felt like to be unable to pay. You overprovide because underproviding once hurt you. And none of that makes you weak. It makes you honest. But if you never notice it, your past will keep writing checks your future cannot afford. This is why the hidden cost of looking successful is not only financial, it is emotional inheritance. It is the old version of you trying to convince the world that he finally made it, and the world will let you do that for as long as you can keep paying. The bank will not stop you. The dealership will not stop you. The realtor will not stop you. The credit card company will not stop you. The people around you may not stop you either because your expensive life may be making their lives more comfortable. So at some point, you have to become the adult in the room, even if you are tired of being the adult in the room. You have to ask the question most people avoid: who am I trying to convince? Not in a harsh way, not with shame, just honestly. Who needs to believe I am doing better than I am? Who am I afraid of disappointing? Who am I trying to impress? Who am I trying to rescue? And what would my life look like if I stopped spending money to answer those questions? That is where real financial maturity begins. Not when you learn a complex investment strategy. Not when you know every tax trick. Not when you can talk about markets at dinner. It begins when you stop confusing financial performance with personal worth. You are not more respectable because your car is newer. You are not more loved because you pay for everything. You are not more successful because people assume you have no limits. A man with limits is not a failure. A man without limits is usually being consumed. And maybe this is the moment to admit something uncomfortable. Some of the people who admire your lifestyle would never trade places with your stress. They like the picture, not the pressure. They like the result, not the cost. They see the surface and call it success, while you live inside the machinery that keeps it moving. But machines wear down. People do too. And the cruelest part is that many high earners do not notice the wear until they have lost years of peace, years of health, years of marriage tension, years of quiet anxiety, years of saying yes when every honest part of them wanted to say, "I cannot carry this anymore." That sentence can feel terrifying, but it can also be the beginning of a better life. Not a smaller life in the sad sense, a cleaner life. A life where your money serves your actual values instead of protecting your image. A life where you can help without bleeding. A life where success is not something you perform, but something you can actually rest inside. The fourth layer is that a high income can hide weak financial foundations for a very long time. That is one reason this trap is so dangerous. When someone earns very little and makes a mistake, the mistake shows up quickly. A late bill, an overdraft, a card declined, a choice between groceries and gas. The pain is immediate, and because it is immediate, it forces attention. But when someone earns a lot, the pain can be postponed. You can cover the mistake, you can move money around, You can refinance, you can put it on the card, you can take a bonus and clean up the mess, you can use next month to pay for last month, and because the machine keeps running, you tell yourself the machine is healthy. But sometimes, all the income is doing is keeping a fragile system from admitting it is fragile. A rich salary can become like a beautiful ceiling in a house with a cracked foundation. Guests walk in and look up. They say, "This is impressive." But the owner knows the floor shifts when it rains. The owner knows the doors do not close right. The owner knows something underneath is not settled. That is how many people live with money. From above, it looks fine. From underneath, it is moving. And the foundation is not complicated. It is margin, cash reserves, low debt, a lifestyle that can survive a bad year, retirement contributions that happen before the leftovers disappear, insurance that protects the family without choking the budget. A clear understanding of where the money goes. Not perfection, not extreme frugality, just structure. But structure feels boring when income feels exciting. Nobody brags at dinner about having 6 months of expenses saved. Nobody posts a picture of not upgrading their car. Nobody gets applause for choosing a smaller mortgage than the bank approved. Yet those are the decisions that quietly protect a life. And the older you get, the more protection matters. At 25, you can recover from certain mistakes with time. At 45, 55, or 62, time is still powerful, but it is no longer unlimited. The margin for pretending gets smaller. A bad financial structure that was uncomfortable at 35 can become dangerous at 55. Because now the questions change. It is no longer just, can I make the payment? It becomes, can I keep this pace? What happens if I get tired? What happens if my industry changes? What happens if my health changes? What happens if I cannot earn at this level forever? These are not fearful questions. They are adult questions. And mature money management begins when you stop building a life as if your strongest earning years will never end. Many people do the opposite. They hit their peak income years and quietly build peak expenses around them. Bigger house, bigger taxes, bigger insurance, bigger travel, bigger gifts, bigger expectations, bigger everything. And because the salary is bigger, it feels justified. But a peak income lifestyle becomes dangerous when it assumes the peak will last forever. That is how a man can make more money at 50 than he ever made in his life and still be more financially vulnerable than he was at 30. Because at 30, maybe he had less money, but he also had fewer fixed obligations, more energy, and more years to recover. At 50, the life may be heavier. The income may be higher, but the machine may require constant feeding. And that is not freedom. That is dependency wearing a good suit. A lot of people think financial freedom means having enough money to buy what they want. But the deeper version is having enough control to not need everything you could buy. That is a different kind of strength. It is quiet. It is not flashy. It is the strength to leave money unspent even when spending it would make you feel important for a moment. It is the strength to say, I can afford it, but I do not want it owning a piece of my future. That sentence alone can change a life. Because the cost of something is not only the price, the cost is the attention it takes. The maintenance, the insurance, the debt, the time, the pressure, the years of work attached to it, the options you give up, the peace you trade away. A $90,000 car may not cost $90,000. It may cost the chance to leave a toxic job 6 months earlier. A bigger house may not just cost the higher mortgage. It may cost weekends, repairs, taxes, stress, and the quiet feeling that you can never slow down. A lifestyle can look comfortable while quietly removing every exit door. And when there is no exit door, even a good job can start to feel like a prison. That is why the goal is not to become cheap. Cheap is fear. Cheap is small. Cheap says no to everything because it does not trust life. That is not what I am talking about. I am talking about being intentional. Knowing the difference between what gives your life depth and what only gives your life decoration. Spend on the things that truly matter. But stop letting every dollar become a vote for an image you are tired of maintaining. Maybe the family dinner matters. Maybe the safe car matters. Maybe helping your child through a hard season matters. Maybe travel with your spouse matters because time together has become rare. Fine. Keep those things if they are real values. But be honest about the rest. The things you keep paying for because canceling them would make you feel like you are going backward. The things you bought for a version of yourself you no longer want to perform. The things that impress people who are not going to sit with you when the bill comes due. That is where the savings often hide, not in cutting every small joy, in removing the expensive lies. And here is the strange part. When you begin doing this, your life may look less impressive for a while, but it can start feeling more honest almost immediately. The payment disappears. The account starts breathing. The emergency fund stops being a theory. The retirement contribution becomes consistent. The arguments at home get softer. The Sunday evening anxiety gets quieter. And maybe nobody notices. That is okay. Some of the best financial progress in life is invisible. Nobody claps when you become less fragile, but you feel it. You feel it when a surprise bill arrives and does not ruin the month. You feel it when you can say no to overtime without fear. You feel it when the bank app no longer feels like a confession booth. You feel it when you stop needing your life to prove something every time someone looks at it. That is a rich life. Not loud, not perfect, not always impressive, but stable enough to hold you. The fifth layer is the cost of time, because every expensive image eventually asks to be paid for in years, not dollars first. Years. That is the part most people do not see clearly enough. They see the monthly payment, but they do not see the extra months of work attached to it. They see the upgraded lifestyle, but they do not see the evenings they will lose protecting it. They see the house, the car, the memberships, the trips, the private comforts, the polished version of life, but they do not see the invisible contract underneath it all. And the contract says, you must keep earning at this level. You must not slow down. You must not get tired. You must not have a weak year. You must not change your mind. That is a heavy contract to sign, especially after 40, when the body and the mind start telling the truth in ways ambition used to cover up. At 28, you can run on pressure and call it drive. At 35, you can ignore exhaustion and call it building. But at 48, 55, 61, pressure starts charging interest. You feel it in your sleep. You feel it in your patience. You feel it in the way small problems irritate you more than they should. You feel it when Sunday night arrives and your chest tightens because Monday is already walking toward you. And sometimes, the reason you cannot slow down is not because you love the work. It is because your lifestyle has become louder than your wisdom. It keeps saying, keep going. We need the money. And maybe you do need the money. But it is worth asking, for what exactly? For peace? Or for performance? For real security? Or for the appearance of security? For love? Or for the fear of disappointing people who have grown comfortable with your sacrifice? This is where a rich salary can quietly become a poor life. Because a poor life is not only a life without money, sometimes it is a life without time, without choice, without mornings that belong to you, without evenings where your mind is actually present, without the freedom to be tired and not panic, without the ability to say, I have enough. A person can have a large income and still be time poor, attention poor, energy poor, marriage poor, health poor, silence poor. And those kinds of poverty do not show up on a paycheck. They show up in the way you live. They show up when you are sitting in a beautiful kitchen and cannot enjoy the meal because your mind is at work. They show up when your child is talking and you are half listening because a bill is sitting in the back of your head. They show up when your spouse asks what is wrong and you say nothing, because explaining it would require admitting that the life everyone thinks is working is squeezing you from the inside. And that is the part that deserves compassion. Because most people did not build this kind of life out of arrogance. They built it out of hope. Hope that a better income would finally make life feel lighter. Hope that the bigger house would bring the family closer. Hope that the better car would make the commute feel less painful. Hope that nicer things would prove the struggle was worth it. But money can only do part of that job. It can buy comfort, but not always relief. It can buy options, but only if you do not spend every option as soon as it appears. It can buy convenience, but convenience can become clutter when you keep adding it without removing pressure. At some point, you have to stop asking what your income can buy and start asking what your income can protect. Can it protect your future? Can it protect your marriage from constant money tension? Can it protect your health by giving you room to rest? Can it protect your dignity by letting you say no? Can it protect your older self, the one who may not want to work this hard forever? That older self is real. He is not a theory. He is waiting for you. And every financial decision you make now is either making his life lighter or heavier. That is not meant to scare you. It is meant to bring you back to reality. Because the version of you in 10 or 15 years will not care very much whether strangers once thought your life looked impressive. He will care whether you left him choices. He will care whether you left him savings. He will care whether you protected his energy. He will care whether you were brave enough to disappoint the image before the image consumed the man. And this is where the solution starts to become simpler, though not always easy. You begin by telling the truth about what your life actually costs. Not what you think it costs. Not what you hope it costs. Not the version in your head where everything somehow works out. The real number. The fixed bills. The debt. The silent expenses. The annual surprises. The lifestyle habits that never feel large by themselves, but together eat the future. Then you compare that number to the life you say you want. Not the life you post. Not the life your neighbors expect. Not the life your younger self dreamed of to prove something. The life you want now, with a little more honesty in your bones. Maybe you want less stress. Maybe you want to retire earlier. Maybe you want to help your children without becoming dependent on them later. Maybe you want to leave a job that has taken too much from you. Maybe you want to wake up and not feel owned. Once that becomes clear, certain expenses stop looking normal. They start looking like interruptions. They interrupt your peace. They interrupt your options. They interrupt your future. And slowly, you learn to remove them. Not all at once, not with drama, but with the quiet seriousness of someone who has finally decided that looking successful is not worth living trapped. If you are still here with me near the end of this video, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and walk with us every day. Not because you need another voice shouting at you about money, but because sometimes, especially after 40, you need a calmer place to think clearly about the life you are building. And if this conversation is hitting close to home, you are probably not careless. You are probably tired. Tired of earning well and still feeling behind. Tired of carrying an image that costs more than people know. So let's go straight back into it, because this is where things can actually begin to change. The way out is not humiliation. It is alignment. And alignment begins when your money stops trying to impress people and starts telling the truth about what you value. That sounds simple, but it can feel like tearing down a wall you spent years building. Because the image of success may have protected you for a while. It may have helped you feel respected. It may have helped you feel like the struggle was finally behind you. It may have helped you walk into rooms with your head higher, but there comes a point where protection becomes a prison. There comes a point where the same lifestyle that once made you feel proud starts making you feel owned. And when that happens, you do not need to destroy your life. You need to renegotiate it. Quietly. Honestly. One piece at a time. Maybe the first piece is admitting that a high income does not excuse a weak plan. Maybe it is sitting down with your real numbers, not to punish yourself, but to stop guessing. Because guessing is expensive. Guessing lets you believe the problem is temporary. Guessing lets you blame the month, the holidays, the repairs, the economy, the taxes, the kids, the price of everything. And some of those things are real. Life is expensive. There is no need to pretend it is not. But when you finally write the numbers down, you may find something more useful than blame. You may find patterns. The house is not just a house. It is a monthly demand. The car is not just transportation. It is a claim on future paychecks. The little upgrades are not little when they repeat every month. The generosity is not generosity if it quietly builds resentment. The vacations are not rest if you come home more financially tense than before you left. And the image is not success if it requires you to hide from your own bank account. Once you see that clearly, you can begin making different choices without turning your life into a punishment. This matters, because many people hear this kind of conversation and immediately think they have to cut everything, shrink everything, live joylessly, and become hard. But that is not freedom either. A poor life can also come from being too afraid to enjoy anything. The goal is not to worship saving. The goal is to buy back your choices. The goal is to stop spending heavily on things that do not love you back. That phrase may sound strange, but you know exactly what it means. Some expenses give life back to you. A quiet dinner with your spouse, a trip that becomes a family memory, a hobby that keeps your mind healthy, a safe home that truly fits your needs, helping someone you love in a way that does not break you. Those things may be worth money, but other expenses only demand proof. They ask you to prove you are still successful, prove you still belong, prove you are not falling behind, prove you are the same person people thought you were. Those expenses are different. They do not feed your life. They feed your anxiety. And when you can tell the difference, money becomes less confusing. You stop asking, can I afford this payment? And start asking, do I want this thing living in my life? Because every expense moves in with you. It takes space. It takes attention. It takes energy. It becomes part of the weather in your home. A payment can sit at the dinner table with you. Debt can ride in the car with you. Financial pressure can sleep in the room between two people who love each other. So choosing what enters your life is not small. It is one of the most intimate decisions you make. The man who begins to understand this changes slowly but deeply. He may still earn well. He may still enjoy comfort. He may still dress well, travel sometimes, live in a nice place, and provide for his family. But the difference is, he is no longer performing. He is choosing. And choosing feels different from performing. Choosing has peace in it. Performing has fear in it. Choosing says, this fits my life. Performing says, this protects my image. Choosing says, this is worth the trade. Performing says, I hope nobody sees the trade. And that is why the path out of a rich salary and poor life is not only financial, it is personal. It asks you to become honest enough to disappoint an imaginary audience. Because most of the people you are trying to impress are not even watching as closely as you think. They are busy with their own worries, their own bills, their own secret pressures. And even if they are watching, they do not get to spend your years for you. They do not get to decide how long you stay tired. They do not get to retire on your behalf. They do not get to live inside your marriage, your body, your sleep, your future. You do. So maybe the question is no longer, how do I look successful? Maybe the question is, what would make my life feel quietly rich, even if fewer people noticed? That question is dangerous in the best way. It can make the big house look less necessary. It can make the new car feel less urgent. It can make an old habit lose its power. It can make a simple evening at home feel like wealth. It can make a paid-off balance feel better than applause. And once you taste that kind of peace, the old version of success starts to look very loud, very expensive, and very tired. So here is where everything comes together. A rich salary can open doors, but it cannot decide which rooms are worth entering. It can buy comfort, but it cannot tell you when comfort has turned into weight. It can make people respect the surface of your life, but it cannot give you peace underneath it. That part has to be chosen. Quietly, repeatedly, and usually later than we wish. Because most of us do not wake up one morning and decide to build a life that feels heavy. We drift into it. One good decision, then one expensive decision. One reward, then one expectation. One upgrade, then one new normal. One moment of pride, then years of pressure. And before we know it, we are standing inside a life that looks better than it feels. That is the strange pain of this topic. From the outside, people may see success. From the inside, you may feel trapped by the maintenance of it. And maybe that is why this conversation matters so much for someone over 40. Because by this age, you have lived enough to know that money is not just math. Money is memory. Money is fear. Money is pride. Money is protection. Money is love sometimes. Money is guilt sometimes. Money is the house you wanted to give your family. The car you bought so you would never feel embarrassed again. The vacation you took because everyone needed a break. The check you wrote because saying no felt too cold. The lifestyle you kept because going backward felt like admitting defeat. And none of that is simple. None of it deserves mockery. But it does deserve honesty. Because the years ahead of you are too valuable to spend them defending a version of success that does not give you peace back. At some point, the question has to change. Not, can I keep affording this? But, do I want to keep becoming the person this life requires me to be? That question can be uncomfortable. It can make you look at the house differently, the car differently, the calendar differently, the job differently, even the people around you differently, not with anger, with clarity. Because when you see the cost clearly, you stop confusing sacrifice with maturity. You stop calling exhaustion responsibility. You stop calling approval security. You stop calling a full lifestyle a full life. And slowly, something inside you begins to loosen. You realize you do not need to impress people who are not carrying your stress. You do not need to buy things for a version of yourself that only existed to prove you had escaped the past. You do not need to keep paying emotional interest on old embarrassment. You do not need to keep performing success while your future waits quietly in the corner, hoping you will remember him. That future version of you is not asking for perfection. He is asking for room. Room to breathe. Room to rest. Room to choose. Room to handle a hard season without panic. Room to be generous without resentment. Room to work because it still has purpose, not because every payment is standing behind you with its hand out. And maybe that is what real wealth begins to look like after a certain age. Less like applause, more like breathing space. Less like a bigger life, more like a life that actually fits. Less like people saying, "You've done well." More like going to bed and knowing you are no longer lying to yourself. That kind of wealth is not loud. It may not turn heads. It may not photograph beautifully. It may not make anyone jealous. But it changes the way you walk through your own home. It changes the way you open the mail. It changes the way you talk to your spouse. It changes the way Sunday night feels. It changes how much fear lives inside your income. And once you understand that, the goal becomes clearer. You are not trying to look poor. You are not trying to punish yourself. You are not trying to reject comfort or beauty or generosity. You are trying to stop funding the parts of your life that only exist because you were afraid to be seen as ordinary. Because ordinary, when it is honest, can be deeply peaceful. A simple car with no payment can feel better than a luxury car that keeps you awake. A smaller house with margin can feel richer than a larger house that owns your weekends. A quiet dinner paid in cash can feel better than an impressive trip still following you months later. A boring emergency fund can feel more beautiful than anything you bought to prove you were okay. And maybe in the end, that is the hidden truth. Looking successful is expensive because it always needs an audience. Being financially stable is quieter because it only needs alignment. No applause, no performance, no costume. Just a life where your money and your values finally stop fighting each other. So before this video ends, do not ask yourself whether your salary is impressive. Ask yourself what it is protecting. Ask yourself what it is feeding. Ask yourself what it is hiding. Ask yourself what it is costing you in years, in sleep, in patience, in freedom, in the quiet parts of your life no one else can see. And then, without drama, begin removing what no longer belongs. One payment, one expectation, one old story, one expensive lie at a time. If this conversation stayed with you, follow the channel because we are going to keep talking about money in a way that respects the life behind the numbers. Share this video with 5 people who may need to hear it, not because they are failing, but because they may be tired of pretending. And leave a sincere comment below. Tell me what part of this felt true and what topic you want us to talk about next. Because sometimes the richest thing a person can do is finally stop paying for a life that never felt like home.